Welcome to the Beyond Membership podcast, where we're uncovering what drives associations forward and how the suite of Momentive Software products accelerates that momentum. My name is Jake Juby. I'm Director of Engineering from Nimble AMS, and I've been working for Momentive Software for 9 years. I've been in the association industry for the same amount of time.
My name is Rob Miller, and I have been in the industry for 30 years. I have worked at 2 associations, the National Association of Broadcasters and 340B Health. And along the way, I became a certified association executive. For the remaining 20 years, I worked at Momentive Software, or some previous iteration or name of that. And my current role is I'm Senior Vice President of Association Strategy, which is the intersection of sales, marketing, and product development, and which is where really all my interests lie. So I love this new role that I'm playing. And now through this podcast, I'll also get to be involved in the education side of my job as well. So I'm really pleased that you're all joining us.
So for our very first episode, we are joined by Tirrah Switzer, who is an expert in trends for associations and has been working with Momentive for the last 9 years to develop a market research study that really brings to light the trends for associations. And so I'll turn it over to Tirrah to tell us a little bit more about that study.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jake. Super excited to be here to talk about the Momentive Software, formerly Community Brands, annual research study. So we have been doing this study since 2015, which is really exciting because we have a lot of history and data that we can view backwards and see how it's changed over the years. But one of the things that I think is probably the most unique about this study and really kind of sets it apart for the association industry is the fact that we do use an outside research firm. And so an outside research firm manages the entire survey process. They collect all the data, they do all the slicing and dicing of it, and they let us know what is statistically accurate. They verify that we're getting enough responses, that it represents the market. And so we've been using Edge Research since the beginning of this study and really, I think, adds a lot of credibility to it, but also makes sure that we're doing research the way that it should be done. And then the other part that really sets this study apart is that we look at both association professionals and members. So every year we try to get 1,000+ association members to complete the survey, as well as hundreds of association professionals. And so you'll hear me reference pros. That just means an association professional, someone who works for an association. And then the great thing about surveying both of those audiences is not only are association professionals getting feedback from members on a whole that they can kind of benchmark of what their members say, but also they can see the discrepancies. Where are association professionals and members aligned, and where are they not aligned, which is always interesting to see.
So welcome, Tirrah. So the obvious first question is probably, what were some of the key findings?
So just super short and simple, 4 kind of key findings. Member loyalty metrics remain high, which is really great. So does engagement, but member lapse is still at risk. There are still some indicators out there about what causes members to lapse. Secondly, members and pros viewpoints differ in some really key areas. So this is a trend we've kind of seen throughout the years, but is growing. And so definitely some places to take some action, change some strategies there. Third, technology preparedness remains lackluster. Hate to say it that way, but that's just really what the data is telling us. And then lastly, you know, we got to talk about AI today because it's all the rage. Members are ahead of associations when it comes to artificial intelligence. They're using it at much higher rates. So short, simple, those were the kind of 4 key findings out of this year's study.
Yeah, that definitely popped out to me too. I think, especially when you talk about the divergences between the members and the pros. I get to talk to pros all the time because they use the software, but I rarely ever get to talk to members, so I find that really interesting. And so, what is your take on what members found the most valuable?
So when we look at the results through the years, there's kind of 3 key member benefits that always are at the top of the list. And in all reality, are kind of why associations exist. One being providing industry specific information. That's kind of a duh, right? Professional standards or code of ethics. Not a sexy benefit that we offer, but members hugely, hugely value them. And then the third, information about the latest news, regulations, trends, and other issues affecting the profession or the industry. Those are the kind of top 3 that we see almost every single year. And again, are kind of related to why associations really exist in general. But what we've really seen the past couple of years is that career advancement benefits continue to rise in importance to members. So whether that's certification and credentials, it's job opportunities, it's knowing the latest technology trends in your industry or profession, webinars, webcasts, all of those career advancement opportunities, those are really, really rising in importance to members and a big reason why younger members are coming to associations.
Yeah, that was definitely the one that stuck out to me for sure from the ones that showed up. It's like the job opportunities, super low pro uh, interest, really high member interest.
Yeah, and there's really 6 areas where we've seen misalignment between members and pros. And the majority of them having to do with career advancement. So job opportunities, helping with career advancement, mentoring and professional advice, certifications and credentials and training, as well as meetings and conferences. When we look at those others, we see that members care about those benefits much, much higher rates than than association professionals. So members care about job opportunities. There's a 32-point gap between the value that members place on job opportunities than association professionals. And when you think about the technology to help with that, that is like such an easy way to meet your members' needs, is a really great job board and career center. Such an easy technology that you can plug in right away and really provide some value to your members right away. So, that's always surprising to me, and that gap continues to rise. So when we asked that question in 2019, there was a 13-point gap, and now there's a 32-point gap. Like that's a
Wow.
big difference.
Yeah.
And then we kind of see that with meetings and conferences the opposite way. Pros overestimate the importance of them as opposed to members. But when we think about, kind of the changes that have happened in the industry, back in the day, you got all your career advancement at your meeting and conference, right? You went to
Right.
the annual meeting. It's where you
You
got
met people.
yeah, you met people, you got career advice, you got to meet some mentors in person, all of that. But now we've kind of transitioned to this year-round learning, just-in-time learning concepts where people want to learn right now, whatever
Right.
skill they're trying to advance. And so when we look at the data, and we had a really great conversation with our research firm about this, but with those shifts in industry, what we really think is shifting is that meetings and conferences are not necessarily viewed as a benefit today. They're probably more a channel to deliver the member benefits that people really want, as opposed to a benefit itself. And so when you think about career advancement being so popular, there's lots of great ways that you can weave that into your meetings and conferences and deliver that value through the channel of meetings and conferences.
Right.
So Tirrah, obviously when I was working at my last association, we would survey our members and ask them what they wanted, but sometimes we just made our own decisions. And but one of the things that I was always passionate about was that I felt like we had to provide an awesome experience for them to interact with us through the web, that kind of thing. And one of the things that I think we probably all noticed from this study, that there's a strong correlation between member loyalty and tech adoption by the association. Talk to us a little bit about that topic.
We started asking this question in 2017 because there was a lot of transition going around in the industry. And so we wanted to see, how do members rate their association? Do they think they're an early adopter of technology? Are they ahead of the curve? Are they behind? And then how did that kind of relate to their satisfaction, their NPS score, as well as their connection to these association? And what we found was members who view their association as an early adopter of technology are significantly more satisfied, connected, and would recommend the association. And I mean, we're talking a difference between, when we look at satisfaction alone, total is 55% are satisfied. Those who view their association as an early adopter, 81% are satisfied. Like, that's a huge jump. And that kind of actually remained steady until this year. So we saw that connection, NPS, that likelihood to recommend, and satisfaction were kind of about the same since we asked the question. But there has been a significant increase from with satisfaction in particular. So those that it jumped about 10 points, more than 10 points, which is really big, from 22 to 24. And so again, it just has such an impact. And when you think about it, what do we deal with every day in life? All this technology.
Our phone, our websites, the whole 9 yards. Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Like, am I going to a grocery store? No. No. Besides the fact that I hate the grocery store, but I don't need to, right? I don't need to go. Amazon just delivers everything to my house, and it's super easy.
You're living in the future over there. I'm still going to the grocery store, folks.
I mean, my husband likes to go, so he goes, but stresses me out. But everywhere around you, you're getting recommendations, you're having really easy login processes, really easy e-commerce experiences. And when your association does that same thing, your members notice. Your members are more satisfied, they're more connected to your organization, and they're probably more connected just simply because it's easy for them to do stuff. And then, of course, the likelihood to recommend, that NPS score of promoters, is much higher as well. It can be hard to be an early adopter. Like in personal life, I am not an early adopter. I'm a laggard. But think about the people who were the first people in line to get that iPhone, right? Those early adopters, they want that experience everywhere else in their life, including their association.
And clearly that indicates, that kind of information tells associations that investing in technology that particularly can touch their members is going to really have a high return on investment as it relates to loyalty, it sounds like.
It is. And it's, if you're struggling with getting your board to approve budget or having the conversations of why you should be investing in technology every single year, use this study with your board. Like, this
Ideal.
is really helpful to have that conversation of, if we aren't early adopters, if we're not ahead of the curve, we could end up ceasing to exist.
So speaking of return on investment, the pros they have a different view about technology. They see themselves as laggards, as well as you, Tirrah, um, and they're generally seeing themselves as below average. I think that tracks with my experience with the association industry as well. And generally, like, things come along, I think we're kind of seeing that with the whole nod back to members probably having more disruption in their daily lives with opportunities to learn things and to add new skills to their repertoire. And now they're looking for the same thing from their association. So how are pros making the case to invest and change the game here? Because they must recognize that they need to do something a little differently, especially as we see AI really changing the landscape for everybody, including their members.
Through the years, we have found that pros are a lot tougher on themselves than members are. So first off, as an association professional, like, give yourself a break. Association pros are much, much harder on themselves. But we have seen a lot of investment in technology since we started this study. And so we kind of alternate each year in what the focus is on. So one year is kind of focused on engagement, value, etc. And then the other year is all based on technology. So this year was a technology year. And there's a few questions we always ask to just kind of see how that benchmark has changed. And so we always ask, what tools are you using today? And, AMS, CRM, majority of people are using it, right? No big surprise there that it's number one. But if we look at the top 5 that are used by association professionals, it's AMS or your CRM system, webinar webcast tools, event-related tools, job boards, and CMS. Those take the top 5. If we look at AMS CRM alone, since 2017, that has made a 20% jump. So only 66% of associations we surveyed utilized an AMS or a CRM in 2017, whereas 87% did in 2024. So I think that's really exciting in that people are adopting. It shows growth in our industry that, when you typically associations start off, you're going to be smaller because you don't have a huge operating budget. You're going to be operating off of spreadsheets, et cetera.
Right.
So it's really great that we've seen that big jump. And then we've seen a 10+% increase in those utilizing event-related tools, job boards, and LMS. So again, we're seeing some positive movement that people are investing. They're investing in different technologies that help with that engagement, that retention, and acquisition, as well as, of course, revenue. And, AI usage, of course, has increased. No big surprise. It was 4% in 2017. It was only 18% in 2024, which was a little surprising that it was so low.
Yeah.
But again, we are seeing some of that movement, which is really good. And it shows that associations really are investing in technology to help them run their business each and every day.
So does the survey help you determine which technologies were best at driving revenue, member acquisition, retention, loyalty, that kind of thing?
So that was a new question that we actually asked this year. So we took the list of, hey, you're using these technologies. What do they help you do? Do they help you drive revenue, acquisition, retention, engagement? And the largest believed to drive revenue, event-related tools. Not a huge surprise there, right? Like
No.
events are a great revenue source. Lots of tools are helping you engage people, register people, etc. When it comes to increasing member engagement, 47% said webinar webcast tools. Online communities was a close second, which I think everyone probably expected online community
To be number one, yeah.
one.
Yep.
Membership acquisition and retention, AMS CRM, the highest at 49%. No real surprise there, again, because you're driving all of your activity for retention and acquisition really out of your AMS. There were two kind of really surprising answers, though, besides the online communities not being number one for engagement. The other one surprising for me in particular was the view of Career Center and job boards. It was ranked pretty low on acquisition, retention, and engagement. I mean, your career center's literally made for that. Like, yes, is the revenue source of a job board career center excellent? 100%. And there's people who are making, a ton of their budget up from that revenue source. But it also is, I feel like from all the results that we've looked at in all the years, that's also kind of really what it's viewed as. It's not always viewed as a member value or a member engagement tool. And that's really, really what it is. Members want to interact. They want career advancement opportunities. And so that is just a great tool for acquisition, retention, engagement. Is your career center integrated into your AMS? If not, it should be, because then job seekers can be automatically added to your AMS as a lead to help you market them, convert them into members. You can have great engagement metrics as well, to help you with engagement scoring that comes from that career center. So for me, that was a little surprising that career centers and job opportunities were ranked so low there, as in like 19%, 21%. It really is viewed as a revenue source. And then the last one that really surprised me was artificial intelligence. Just 4% of people thought that it was useful for engagement, acquisition, retention, or revenue. Like, seriously, we can be using AI to predict so much. We can predict which members are at highest risk of lapsing. We can view recommendations of a donation based on someone's past giving history, their likelihood to give again, who's ready for certification, right? We can predict that. There's so many things that AI can drive that help with revenue, acquisition and retention, and engagement.
With Jake being our technical leader here on this call, I'm sure he's ready to jump out of his chair as it relates to AI. But before he does, I have a quick question, though, back to the careers, or comment is that, I wish I'd have had that information when I was working at our association, because I'll be honest with you, we had a nice career site, but we did not have it integrated to our AMS. It was just something that ran off to the side, and all we cared about was that monthly check that we got at the end of the month. And we just didn't think about it as either a recruitment or a loyalty tool. And clearly that was a big missed opportunity.
Yeah, it can be just such a great resource. And like you said, it's usually that technology that looks really great. You put it out there and you're like, okay, great, send me my monthly check.
It is time to talk about the elephant in the room.
Bum, bum, bum.
48% of members report that they use AI at least weekly, which is a somewhat surprising, but maybe not too surprising number. And then you contrast that with only 18% of pros saying that their organization uses AI. There's a big gap there. I think the younger you are, the more likely you are to be using AI more often. And I also recently referenced a study by ASAE that said only I think 17% of organizations had a organizational like statement about the use of AI for staff to or pros to take advantage of. So I thought that was really surprising. And what sort of comments do you have about that?
Yes, and you stated the total number there, right? But if we look at it by generation, and let's talk about Gen Z, who's our newest members and are going to continue to be our, who we're recruiting for the next several years, they're using AI 65% weekly or more.
Wow.
Right? Like that's a big jump too from total. And so there's definitely a lot of room when it comes to AI. And, it's not like it's new to the industry. We've been talking about it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long I've been talking about predicting member lapse, but it's been a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Many years.
right? You and I have talked about it a lot together.
Yeah.
And, association, nonprofit industry in general is a little slower to adopt technology. We know that. But we asked the question, what's the board's position on the org's use of AI? A third, 31%, have not even discussed it with their board yet. Like that was shocking to me because
Wow.
how did you get through 2023
Right.
or 2024 and not talk about this? Because like ChatGPT is just now like a verb like Uber, right?
Right.
I always say that I'm going to Uber. Am I using Uber? No, I use Lyft. But it's a verb, and I feel like that has what ChatGPT has become the verb of Gen AI too.
Right.
Um, so that to me was just shocking. I think there's obviously a lot of space for improvement here. But really it's got to start with just having the conversation and starting somewhere with your policy. Like, are you going to get everything right in the beginning on your first pass of developing a policy? No, probably not.
Right.
And especially if you don't have an IT team, right? So
Yeah.
but you got to start somewhere, and starting small and just getting started I think is really important. And having the conversations with the board, if you haven't, really has to be a priority for the near future. How can you fast track that a little? Could you maybe do it in phases? Could you just roll something out right now? Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's in agreement, you're just slow to do it, like let's get it done.
Right.
But it's not going away. That's for sure. It's definitely not going away.
Right.
And of course, most associations don't want to be out on the bleeding edge, and so they may view that as this. But we're at a point where, of course, these products are moving much faster than any have ever in history. And the great thing is there's already starting to become good use cases that other associations are testing out. And there's organizations like ASAE and others that are starting to have seminars related to AI. So, without going out on the bleeding edge, you can still get on the front of the wave and learn these things. That'll help you develop your policy. And you can also, maybe some of these things that others are doing would be a great way for you to dip your toe in. And I mean, I always loved copying when I was trying to determine what types of new programming to add at our association. Rather than just invent something entirely new, I would talk to other execs, other IT leads, and say, what are you doing that's working well? And this is another ideal area to do that, and highly recommend that. That's a great way to start, is follow with someone who's doing something that's successful.
Yes. I was on a board of, oh, probably way longer than I want to say, but I was on a board a while ago with a woman who always called it desire and acquire. So when you see something that you desire, acquire it. But that's, it's a great place to start. And also, in the research study, we asked members, like, what are you comfortable with your association doing with AI? And what are you not comfortable with them? Like, use that as a starting point too. There's, some very simple things that you could do. There's things that's probably built in some of the technology that you're using that you could just utilize. Um, and then there's some that's going to take a little more work to do. Um, but there's at least some data there and a starting place for you of members are like, yeah, I'm okay with this. Now, what was one of the interesting things was the thing that they were least comfortable with, which was anticipating or predicting behavior.
I noticed that.
They were comfortable with the outcomes of that. And the outcomes being the recommendations, like what's personalized for them.
Right.
So it's also about how you position what you're doing, because that changes people's perceptions as well. But I'm really good and feel comfortable when it benefits me.
Right. Yeah, it's funny how that sort of like predictive suggestion type thing has gone from being sort of creepy to being like part of our lives.
Indeed.
Um, but especially when it comes to Gen AI, I think a little bit of gumption here is probably needed from pros to like try some things out, especially when it comes to trying just crossing the bridge and having the conversation with your board and getting some sort of statement out there so that people feel comfortable trying these tools out. Right.
So Tirrah, kind of just to wrap up, is there anything else in the study that you thought people should particularly know or surprised you or anything else?
From a surprise standpoint, I will say I was surprised by AI. Like, I thought the usage would be low, but I kind of thought that it would be a quarter to a third. I was not expecting 18%. So that was a little surprising to me, from the study for sure. But for me, I think the most impactful takeaway really from the study is about how technology impacts member loyalty and is something that we usually don't talk about when we talk about member loyalty. We're talking about engagement and the benefits that we offer and, programming and, the industry and profession. But how all of that is delivered plays a direct impact on member loyalty. And that, it's important to pay attention to. And the fact that we saw that big jump in satisfaction between 22 and 24 for those that view their org as an early adopter, I think is a sign that we're going to continue to see that increase. And it's something that association leaders really need to pay attention to, have the conversations with their board about, even have the conversation with their members. Like, when have you asked your members what they think about your technology usage, where you could improve it? Those are some great ways to also be seen as an early adopter or someone who's trying to stay ahead of the curve. Those types of questions can give that perception. And then lastly, this is a little bit of a soapbox for me, but I do believe that the competition for associations is getting very fierce. And there are a lot of members that are going to become the biggest threat to associations' futures. And that's because industry thought leaders is it's really easy to make your own member community today.
Well, and part of that comes back to this concept of frictionless interactions with an organization. So
Yes.
they basically have kind of come up with the magic formula to provide that, just the way Amazon did with e-commerce. And so I think that's one of the reasons why the members value the technology investments so high, because ultimately what they want to have is an easy, frictionless interaction with their organization they're a member of, so they can get in, get out, get what they want, and in this case, get that career support and move on. And so some of these things that you're telling us from the study just simply on the surface make a lot of sense, because that's certainly what I would want, and I think that all the members want for a variety of reasons.
Yes.
So, Tirrah, how could someone get their hands on this study?
So super simple. Two things. One, you can connect with me on LinkedIn and start a conversation about it because I love this. But very easily, if you don't want to talk to me, communitybrands.com, the resources center has the on-demand version of the webinar, or you can also just download the PDF of the study as well. And then a third option is nucleusanalytics.com. There is a portion of the research study in Nucleus. So you can filter it, you can play with the data. The entire study is not there, but a portion of it is there that you can play with the data yourself and kind of benchmark yourself, which is fun.
Very cool.
Yes. Well, thanks so much for your time, Tirrah, and it's been a real pleasure having you on and hearing all of your expertise.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tirrah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Starting with our first episode, we want to continue to bring you recurring segments. We have 3 recurring segment ideas in mind at this time. A customer spotlight, which is a short feature on how a customer is innovating with association tech. Ask an expert, audience submitted questions answered by the guest or hosts. Or Tech Corner, which is a brief discussion of a trending tech tool or feature that associations may benefit from. What we have today is Tech Corner. And because Tirrah did such a good job kind of laying the groundwork for a gap that is out there for association pros and members when it comes to AI, we thought we would talk about an AI tool. So oftentimes when we're talking about AI, we talk about, especially in like the nomenclature of the last couple of years, we talk about ChatGPT and we're talking about generative AI. There's obviously a lot more types of AI, but generative AI is the really hot one right now. And there are alternatives to ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot. Here is one of them that I'm kind of introducing you to today. And so this is a tool that is released by Anthropic, and it's called Claude. And Claude is basically a direct competitor to ChatGPT. And if you follow some of the most recent research, it's also scoring a lot higher on logic tests than ChatGPT is at the moment, especially on the free tier. So this is a really good tool to kind of dip your feet back into the AI game if you haven't checked it out since December of 2022 when it was going crazy, and now it's made a lot of upgrades and improvements, and so this is a tool that you can get into and check out.
So Jake, I've had an opportunity to work with a little bit with ChatGPT and more recently with Microsoft Copilot, and certainly with Copilot, I was actually able to essentially create my own. Well, I could use ChatGPT as the engine, but I could create my own tool and put it up and put it against a website, a number of things. Is that what Claude is, or is Claude just a tool that somebody comes in and asks it questions?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Both Claude and ChatGPT have underlying frameworks or APIs that allow programs to be built on top. And what that really means is that you're building a program that is calling out to the generative AI, and you're building features that bring the feedback back into the generative AI. Or excuse me, back into the application that you're building. So that's how people build applications on top. Furthermore, some of these tools actually have what's known as like custom agent. If you've been following what Salesforce has done over the past few months, they're releasing something they're calling Einstein agents, which is it's an LLM that has a goal, but it knows how to self-prompt itself to continually like work towards its end goal. So some of those capabilities also are possible here with some elbow grease, I'll call it, which at this point a lot of that stuff is like on the bleeding edge, and you can take advantage of it if you kind of know how to consume these APIs.
So I have one other question. So you mentioned at the beginning that Claude was free. Is that the primary reason that somebody would go and use it, or is it free? And in addition to that, there's something else that makes it special that would make somebody want to try it out.
Yeah, it's not OpenAI, which I think is helpful as something to understand. Is that it's not ChatGPT or OpenAI, so it's a competitor. It's very similar. Um, there are paid versions, so just to be clear, there's paid versions. There's a free tier, kind of similar to ChatGPT. Um, it is scoring higher than ChatGPT. So if you're interested in that perspective, you may come and try it out to see the difference. It's probably going to be somewhat negligible at this stage, um, but I mainly you would use Anthropic because you don't want to use ChatGPT, um, and they kind of fill the same gap together, as so does Google's tool, which I'm kind of drawing a blank on the name now, um, as well as Microsoft Copilot, which is really just ChatGPT, obviously, with some frameworks around it.